All right, I think we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Crypto Warehouse. My name's Brogan, and today we are back for another trading stream. Now, pretty crazy. I did miss Saturday. I do apologize. I was out, and I didn't get a chance to update anybody with the new stream, but I'm back again. Otherwise, okay, and we've had quite a while away from the charts in terms of coming back from the stream, and it's been a pretty wild ride so far. So I'm pretty happy with how the charts have gone in comparison to what we said on Thursday versus how it's gone over obviously the course of the weekend and whatnot up until today. So very happy. I do have quite a lot of coins obviously on my plate. We've got Syrup, we've got Sui I do want to look at as well. Obviously Tito, I think you are here as well. I did miss your, I did think I haven't been on Telegram in a long time because it doesn't update properly on my PC and my phone doesn't get notifications. So I only see messages when I'm on it, and I wasn't on it for a while. And I know I didn't actually get around to your message, so I do apologize. We can still talk about Ethereum again, but I am also going to be covering Sui, and I will try and sneak in Crow. Now, the longer we go, it seems like the more and more coins we try and cover. It's going to get to the point where I'm doing every coin in 60 seconds. I've got 60 coins to look at, but we will try and have a look at Crow. I will try my hardest. Okay, I know there's a lot. Obviously, I've got a lot of streams going on. I've got a lot of got a lot of tokens to cover. Okay, but we're gonna try our hardest. I'm gonna get through it as good and as best and all the different words as possible to get to Crow at the end, because obviously Crow's been doing its thing, and we've been talking about this. We did look at Crow because again I couldn't be, because when we looked at Crow last time, I can't remember how long ago it was. I couldn't be asked to look at it on the daily and the weekly because it was, or the daily and like 4 hour and stuff. Because again, the price action was pretty crap of Crow, a long time ago. It was just crap. So I looked at it on the monthly and the weekly, and on the monthly and the weekly, again, it was the idea was we would come up eventually towards certain areas, and it's again monthly and weekly TA, it takes a longer time to happen. So again, I will say about Crow, I am not surprised by this. I've just made my camera go blue. Let me make sure that's not blue. See my bed in the background. It's blue again. Hold on. I need to turn that off. I don't know how to do it, but I need to turn it off. Anyway, let's start timer. Actually, you know what? No, I'm gonna be good today. I'm gonna decrease this to like 55 because I've been yapping a bit and whatnot, and I started a bit late. So let's do 55. That's 5 minutes. That's 5 minutes. That's not what I wanted to do. That is not what I wanted to do. There we go. 55. And let me move it back down. Please, let me move it back down. There we go. Move to the right a bit as well. Perfect. Okay, we're here. Took a dip on Bitcoin. Yes. Okay, I'm still. You know what? Let's get into it. So let's look at some percentages first. 110,625 for Bitcoin. Pretty good. Pretty good. Again, we were talking about the low of the previous move down. We were talking about the gap at 110. We were talking about a few things for Bitcoin, but we're at 110.60. I want to get into this because again, I've got 54 minutes, and I do have a bit more to talk about, so I'm not going to go too much into this. Ethereum, 4,537, pretty good. Again, I will be going over Ethereum. We did really well with Ethereum. Again, the last time we left off, which I obviously will go on to with Ethereum, is we were looking at the reversal we could be potentially having. Because what I was saying on Thursday was, and I will get back onto this when we look at the chart. Scratch my leg, I might be on a different angle on the camera. We were talking about a reversal happening on Ethereum and us going back up to the all-time high, and we did that. So very happy with Ethereum. Obviously, not saying not saying this is financial advice. I'm not saying you guys should trade what I talk about, because again, please, I'm not someone who's a financial advisor in any regard, and you should not trade what I talk about. You should make sure you trade it off your own back. But we did talk about Ethereum reversing on Thursday and going back up to its all-time high, and we've done that very rapidly. So very happy about that. Solana, I haven't actually looked at Solana in a while. 194, that's pretty good. I think that's near the highs again. I think 206 we got to maybe. Again, we'll look at it. And then obviously, I want to look at Syrup. We have what price? 40.59, not bad as well. Again, 38.50. I think it is a 30.59 is the price we're aiming for. We've been aiming for. And what I've actually promised myself is I'm going to be posting this on Twitter, because I do not post on Twitter ever. So I might try and start posting on Twitter soon, because again, that is like, nobody really comes on these streams. Obviously there's a few regulars, and then it's kind of just me talking to the void and me talking to you guys. And obviously, hopefully you guys enjoy watching the streams. But I think I need to start posting on Twitter more so people can actually see what I talk about. So do follow me on Twitter if you do want to see some charts. Just without having to watch an hour stream and hear me yibby yabbering, for a whole hour. So 40.44 is pretty good for Maple. Again, we've been talking about us coming from 52 cents all the way down to 38 cents, and we've been doing this, we've been following it. So far, so good. Sui, I think we are coming towards the equilibrium point, $3.40. That's pretty good as well. $3.40. So obviously we'll see. And then obviously Crow has been ripping. If we just quickly go to it, 30% up. $20. Again, I think one of our targets was about 24 cents. I mean, not $20, 20 cents. I wish it was $20. 20 cents, I mean. I think one of the targets was 24 cents, if I remember. I really can't remember the last time we looked at it and what we were talking about, but it was about there, maybe somewhere in that, realm of price. So anyway, doing pretty good. Let's jump to Bitcoin. Now, this is a different chart. I normally cover it on Binance in terms of the actual exchange on TradingView, but I just was quickly drawing on a different chart to get it a bit cleaner. I know I keep on doing this. I keep on jumping to different charts with different TA. I'm in the process of cleaning up my chart, because again, the more streams we do, the more things I draw, and I need to kind of clean it up a bit and make sure there's not a bunch of crap on the screen. So in the process of doing that, obviously I hadn't finished it for the stream, and I wanted to clear up the charts and whatnot. I thought I would do it on a different chart and just give it a bit more rest, because obviously the eyes burn. There's a lot of colors on the screen. There's a lot of things going on. So I thought I would, draw it on a different chart, draw it on a different exchange, and give it a bit cleaner. But anyway, so 110,548 right now. So we're on a daily here. What have we been talking about? Well, the main one was this area, this gap on the daily. Now, I have been honing down the gaps, throughout this area. We did have this daily one. Again, it's a bit rough here. And I have also looked at this order block. We were looking at this order block, and we have this here on the weekly, which I probably should look at quickly. So what I like to do occasionally, and this isn't a thing I do every day, this isn't a thing I do on every single stream, because this isn't warranted, but the kind of strategy I go on, whether it is, again, I do look at the general whole area for an entire gap, for example, But I do obviously look at the individual gaps we have. For example, this one with this move. But sometimes what I do, which I don't really do, haven't actually done on stream for a while. I normally do it before the stream, so we have it for the stream to talk about, is I go onto the higher time frames and cascade downwards and draw the sort of support and resistances I would expect on the weekly, the daily, the 4 hour, the 1 hour. And I either hone it if it's a gap, or I just kind of draw it and kind of use that as a bias for the lower time frame. So what I will say about the weekly is we have this final candle with this up close candle with this area. Obviously we kind of come back up into this candle. This is a gap. Again, we can see we have this gap here which we fill with this candle, and then we have this massive uptick. So the last candle before the move back upwards, in this case this move back upwards, and in this candle on the 16th of June for the weekly, this whole candle in theory is the range. Obviously you could draw the top end of the candle, whatever. I'm just going to draw the entire candle to show it, and I've drawn the quadrants to just kind of show general areas in between midpoints and whatnot. So we have this big candle of support and order block, and I'm not saying we are going to see 108.9 and that's our low for Bitcoin, but just a general idea for the local time frame to see, you know, some higher time frame major support resistances. So our major support we could potentially have, not permanently, again, like I just said, but on the weekly, just an area to show some us slowing down, and just an area to target for. Obviously, the top end of this candle, then sort towards some midpoints and whatnot, just to kind of show an example. So just to keep the idea of the number of about 108.877 in the mind. So going to the daily now, obviously that's the reason for that that line, which you know, just this random area I have drawn. Oh yeah, why do you have this drawn? This is why. Now what I've also marked out is some, obviously I pretty much always mark out when we're going on highs or lows in terms of going uptrend, downtrend. So in this case, again, on the daily anyway, again on the 4 hour, we're looking at us going to a downtrend. But as I was saying, in terms of you know, the stream before the last stream and all that sort of stuff, is once we print past 112k, this kind of low, this 111.924, this basically 112k line. Once we print past this low, this is when things start to get, you know, we're officially in this massive downtrend for Bitcoin on the daily and in general. So now what we're doing, obviously, until we hit a major support point or a major point of support, which obviously on the weekly, I don't think this order block is. And again, I've already drawn this, and this is why I don't think this order block is going to be the one to stop us and you know, cause us to go back up to 140k, is because we have this whole range here. And again, if you know me and you've been on any of these streams, you know how much I talk about the ranges and equilibriums and highs and lows and all that sort of stuff. And we can, and I've shown it, I'm not going to go into it because I've shown it already. We have the equilibrium at basically 100k, and we've talked about the gaps down at 90k. So that is the target on the weekly, on the higher time frame. I know a lot of people have those price ranges, 86k, 93, whatever it is exactly. That is the range for me. That whole kind of, you know, major area sitting at around 90k, 89k, that is going to be the area I want to focus on for Bitcoin on the wider time frame. And again, this is only us really just starting to get into that. Again, on the weekly, we're only barely just, you know, again, we've got 5 days left to print on the weekly, but in terms of this being like intermediary low of this move, we have this low, we have this low. We're only just getting past it now, and obviously to print past that. But on the daily anyway, and this is the thing, as the lower time frames consistently do one thing, it cascades upwards. So on the 4 hour, for example, if you're consistently doing a downtrend, and that's what we've had so far. If on the 4 hour, you're consistently doing a downtrend and continuously going down from a high, and you continue to do that, eventually it will obviously, it will translate to the higher time frames. So for example, in this entire move we've had down coming from, you know, kind of scraping past this all-time high for 124, this entire phase of the market, whatever words, has been a downtrend. We've been printing higher lows or lower highs and lower lows. We've been going down consistently on the 4 hour, and it's only really just until recently with this candle on Monday, or this Monday print, where we've actually officially printed past that major low of this area. Now what we did, one of the things I left off with on Thursday was my major target in terms of this kind of general move down was to look at this gap here and kind of come into this general area. Obviously we have this weekly support as well, which we've kind of wicked into, you know, nearing this area. It's not an exact low, but it's within the area. It was that major gap, 110 to 110 basically, 109. And I did also talk about us potentially wicking past this low of this, again, we came into this gap, we filled this gap here with this move. Again, we have the first quadrant up here, which we used. Then have the second quadrant, or second half and first half, to be fair, not quadrant. The first half here being used, and then the second half here, which we then fulfilled in this move August time. And then we obviously move back upwards to obviously do our thing up here. I do have something to say about this low as well, which is very, very crucial, which I think I have drawn on the other charts, but I will obviously redraw here. So again, we've had this move down, we've had this fulfill of this gap, and obviously we've moved back upwards. Great, cool. We've swept past this high, and now we've printed past, we've formed a order block in this area, which obviously we can see on the high here we have used in this daily candle. It goes to the 1 hour, actually it goes to the daily, quickly draw that there. We can see, we've used this. Again, I talked about this in the moment. I was saying, okay, the reason why we didn't really come up to here in the first place, and because again, again, it was Thursday, we were talking here, and I was saying, oh, well, the small trend on the 1 hour says we should stop at this area, but, oh no, I think it was this area actually, and I was like, oh, why have we not, and again, I was actually confused about this in the moment on Thursday. I was like, why have we not, oh no, it might have been Saturday actually, I was saying here, I was like, why have we not come up to this area in this whole move and done that? And it's because of that, that what we formed. Again, we came past that high, so we have that higher time frame point of interest, which we wicked past, and then we had that massive candle downwards. So again, the last up close before the, again, we printed past the lows, we started this downtrend. This move, and obviously this low from the daily, is that start of that resistance, which again, I did talk about on, I think I talked about it in the stream after, which must have been Tuesday. I was talking about this, the start of this area, kind of this whole move, being the resistance, and being that that order block we had here, which if I'll show again. Obviously, we had this high, we have this up move, and then again we have this engulfing candle, which prints past, and starts this downtrend. Basically, this is the last up close candle, which you can see we obviously wick up into. So again, the major resistance there. I have that drawn on the other chart as well, and so on and so forth. But what I do want to talk about, before we get into some lower time frame TA, and again talk about what we're currently doing on Bitcoin, and obviously we can move on to Ethereum, is this line. Now I will show, not evidence that this works, but I will show reasoning why I will talk about this low and the importance of it by using Ethereum as well, because I talked about the same thing on Ethereum, similar thing on Ethereum actually, not the same thing, but a similar process on Ethereum, very similar concepts, not exactly the same on Ethereum and Bitcoin, but the idea is, you have this move where you're in this uptrend, you have this general move, and the idea is you have obviously a move past lows, in this move, and then you move. Well, it's this move. This is the move. Coming past this high and coming past this low is the move. And the idea is, I'm not going to the exact specifics because it's like there's not really much point to do it on this stream. But the general idea is you should see resistance around the low of that move, which brought you down and then up and then down again. So this is kind of the anchor of this move, where you come past a major high and then you print past and come past a major low in this case. So in this case, that major low would be 112k, and this would be a major resistance area. So this isn't only just an area to target to get past, which again we wicked past it, used it as liquidity, whatever you want to coin it, and then obviously we came up into this gap here, or this void here. Obviously we fulfilled this and then continued down. Not only did we do that, but this is also going to be, now that we've printed past it, this is also going to be a major area for resistance. But also, regardless of if I were to say that or not, this is also, that formation of coming past that high and coming past the low is a breaker block, but coming past a failed order block will also use it as resistance. So not only do we have that major low, but this whole formation of this candle is resistance. Now again, we have used this as support previously in previous areas. Again, we have come to it as, kind of come to a mid area, and then we start a bit more of a move upwards. But again, in general, we have flipped this and used it as resistance, mainly because of us coming past that major higher time frame high, and the fact that in this kind of movement and formation, or whatever you want to say, is the idea that you will come past this low and use it as resistance. So the idea that we wouldn't use this as major support, kind of stood ground anyway, before we even printed past it. So that is also something I want to point out, that I think 112 is also going to be a good area to find resistance in as well. So I can probably start to jump down to some lower time frame TA now. So I'm pretty much, again, we had Saturday, we had these areas. I think what I said on Thursday was we were going to come past that major low at least, and kind of do our thing, come up again and find resistance. So what I'll probably do, I'll probably go backwards and show some general areas for kind of highs and lows. Again, we already looked at this gap here. We have one gap here and second gap here as well. So we have these two gap areas, which again, we have come to fulfill the kind of the bottom of this area as well with this kind of wick to 117. But go to the 4 hour, we can start to look at some movement downwards with some of these moves. You can see, obviously, we have this major gap here, or this kind of singular gap here. We obviously come to fulfill above equilibrium and then continue downwards. This is what I will be talking about now, just to kind of show some of the general background of this move. Again, we didn't use it here. We kind of use the equilibrium here, and obviously we've fulfilled this. So what I wanted to talk about with this move was why did we come up and then come down again? Obviously, the main one, I think the main reason for this is this gap we had here. And again, yes, we did have this major void, but the general idea is you want to look at these individual areas as well as major points. And we can see with this, we had this area. I have it as grey, so it's not as distracting, but it is hard to see. I could understand if you're on a mobile or whatever. It is this area here. Again, obviously, we did have that wick, and on the lower time frames, we will see different resistances, but it is within that area here. And again, this is the thing as well, which I was doing on go from the higher time frames to the lower time frames. We can see areas where, like, okay, you might look at it on the daily, and then you can kind of hone in on it on the lower time frame. So we can hone this gap, which we kind of already talked about. We have this major high. I have talked about this previously, where you fill this gap, or you fill like 75% of it, and then you produce this major high. So this is now a major thing to aim for, where, okay, if you're not finding resistance, and again, we've come to this area, we've wicked past this low, we've come to the major support area on the daily in terms of coming to this low area where we've come to the order block, and we should find some sort of support on the higher time frame. Because again, you come down, this is the 4 hour, the support is on the daily, so again, higher time frame bias, higher time frame support should hold a bit stronger. And the idea is you continue in your trend, you continue in your movement until proven otherwise. And in this case, this is kind of the main thing. We didn't really have major things here. And again, we have, and this is what I've drawn on the daily in terms of this low, these lows back here as well. In terms of when you start that downtrend, you have previous price action to look at. You can look at these individual lows, like these major lows, and look at, okay, cool, we form that low, past that low, and then we come upwards and form a higher low. And then, okay, where's the next low to aim for? It's this low, for example, and you can see we target this low, we come back upwards into a gap, so a short-term high. And then the next low from there is this low. We target that low, and then we produce, in this case, actually a new major high in this case, because again, we're in a daily order block, and we have that daily low. This isn't just an inter-trend 4 hour lows. This is a daily low, the daily gap. So again, a bit more support there. And to be fair, I'm not going to kind of completely fandangle. I'm pretty sure this wasn't there some sort of manipulation. I know at the weekend there was a big, it might be the Ethereum, there's a big sell on Ethereum or something. I can't remember. I heard something that there was a manipulation, but again, I haven't really looked at the news or anything like that. I mainly have just looked at the chart. And in this case, what I would say is that we had that daily order block and that higher time frame low, because this isn't just isn't just a low of all these lows going upwards. This is a major kind of low. I think probably also on the weekly, actually, we can see we have this move, and then yes, this is also a technical weekly low where we form this low and we start to come upwards again, which is obviously better seen on the daily. We have this major low and then move upwards, and this order block, which again we come into, we wick past, and then we have that move upwards on the daily. But again, this is the difference here, because you can't just look at one time frame for the entire, your entire thing. You can't just look at one time frame. It's better to look at wider time frames, lower time frames, and everything in between, because you if you're just on the 4 hour and you go, okay, why have we printed upwards? Well, on the daily, our high is here and our low is here, and we've just come down. Obviously, we have our support here, and again, the general idea is, okay, even though we haven't printed past this low, we have these major, we have gaps in these areas, we have these major candle moves which are going to keep us down, and we haven't really retraced. So again, we are in a major downtrend, but in this whole sense, the high is 124. So unless we're doing a new print at a high at 124, we're still in this kind of down move. And then obviously from here, we have that minor gap. We've obviously that new high, which got formed on the 4 hour with this major move into this gap, which then obviously causes us to have this massive move down. We have this gap, which obviously we have aimed for, and then obviously continue back downwards. So, we kind of did that. So kind of just looking at, the price action of this move and the difference in between these moves and this move down here. Obviously, as I've just said, targeting internal these kind of small moves here versus the major support on the daily versus this major low on the daily, which causes us to move a bit faster than all these moves. So that's kind of, I wanted to talk about that just to, because again, this is new TA. I didn't do a stream Saturday. The last stream was here actually, so I did want to talk about this move and kind of why it was so different. And in my opinion, why it was so different, because of the fact that we're in this order block. And what I was saying on Thursday was, we obviously have this gap, which I wanted to target, but also the fact that we were going to at least come past this major daily low, and we had full chance of wicking past, kind of wicking past it and kind of sweeping it, if you will, and then having a major response from there, which we did. And if you just look at the 4 hour, it looked a bit of a concerning move, but again, we just came past this high and then obviously trotted downwards. So anyway, let's continue on to actual TA. I will move on again. I've got 35 minutes left. I got a lot to cover, so let's go to the 1 hour here. So this is literally just movements. And again, I was looking at these, the way it was on the way down pretty much, just looking at these, high to low, and then obviously we come into optimum area, and then we produce new highs, come into optimum area, new high here, new low here. So that's kind of the process I was looking at, which I've looked at on every other stream. If you've been here at least once, you will know what I've drawn. Same thing here. The relative high to the relative low of this downtrend we've had, and again, downtrend of, it's just this at the end of the day. So if you've done that new low, the idea is you're going to do that new lower high and then continue downwards to the lows. Because again, higher time frame, we are continuing past this low. We are still in this major downtrend on the higher time frame, so we should just respect that on the lower time frame as well. So doing this again, we can now look at what we've done. So we've come past that low, this major low. We've also just about come into this really high time frame support. Now, I'm not saying we should have seen exactly support at 108.977, but we have now started to come into this support. So we found this kind of low here. I think we also have a gap back here, but again, it's pretty hard to draw on the 1 hour and the 4 hour. But we did have reason to stop here, or just as a temporary low. And importantly, we also came past this trend low to do that new lower low. So once we get past this low, we're aiming to find where we're going to stop at the low. In this case, obviously, we have this major support point on the higher time frame, and then we're going to find that we then need to look back at this move and find where we're going to do that next low at all. And that's the thing. It's like, why do you stop a downtrend? Well, until you have not enough resistance to keep you down to then start to do higher highs and then obviously come upwards. But anyway, in this case, above equilibrium at 110.819. Major gap, again, just to kind of look at where could we stop at, why could we stop at it. Well, we have this gap here at this major move. Obviously, we come up into some of these areas. We have obviously this candle, we have the major void here, which obviously you can see we pretty much fulfill to a T. And now we're continuing downwards. We have, again, if you look at the major area, it is here, it's quite wide. But in terms of individual candles and just looking at the individual candles to find these areas, it's pretty much just this candle at 111.8 pretty much, or 106 actually, in this area. Basically, that's the midpoint. Just aiming to, as once we get up into this candle, is aiming to find resistance in this area. We also have this tiny little gap which we didn't respect and flipped. As obviously we are in a downtrend, we should expect to flip that with a area at about 111.8. So what I would say is I could expect price to not just immediately find a low, or a lower high anyway, in this right now. I mean, again, I could be wrong, not financial advice, but I would expect price to come up a tiny bit higher, maybe a couple $100 up into this gap a bit more until we find a lower high. But the general topic I will be continuing to talk about is, again, finding a new lower low. We actually formed a support here, again, with this coming past these lows and kind of coming into this major support area, form this massive candle downwards, which then the last down candle before the move back upwards, which again we printed past this with this candle here. We printed past this. We can see we've used this midpoint plentiful. We've used this as a support area in general, and obviously we've come upwards. I'm not saying we're going to hold this. We're not. We're in a downtrend. We shouldn't expect to hold this. If you do see these temporary short-term support points, you should just expect to use them in this short-term move. Again, this is the short-term range. In the context of this range, this is valid and this is fine, yes. But in the context of the major range we've had, in terms of this massive downtrend on the daily and what we're doing on the higher time frames, this is not going to be valid. Simple as. So we're continuing upwards. I would expect us to edge a bit higher and, you know, come up a bit more. We could look on the 50-minute and look individual to the individual gaps. We can see, obviously, we have this one 111.5 as well. We also have that gap a bit higher, 112. I wouldn't expect 112 though. We don't have a gap here. And this is the thing. This is, you know, you draw it on the 1 hour, you have this major gap, but you can go onto the lower time frames and look at, you know, where it refines to. If you were to just look, and I normally look at the major kind of move here and look at, okay, cool. Again, this midpoint is still 111.4 for that major gap, but it consists of these individual candles which have these massive moves downwards. And in this case, we have, when it in this entire gap, it pretty much just refines to this singular move at around 111.5, 111.6 here as well. So again, I would expect us to come upwards. And on the 50-minute anyway, it's not like we're having a really slow move. We've pretty past this major high, had a tiny move down into this gap and fulfilled it, and now we're continuing upwards. We are potentially forming a gap here. If not, we have you know, some behind us as well to find support at, where we're kind of clearly really heavily coming upwards in this move on Bitcoin anyway. So I would expect price to continue a bit higher towards this major area. And again, we are still consciously watching for that short-term high, because again, we are now above equilibrium at 110.819, and we are in this major 1 hour gap anyway. So the refinement of that is that area. So I would expect price relative to this 1 hour gap to come to the midpoint, but just to, you know, I'm just going to show this mini gap on the 15 minutes. So I do expect price to continue to do that, and, you know, come up a bit higher. So that's pretty much it for Bitcoin. Again, once we've done that on the, again, this is short-term Bitcoin anyway. Once we've done that, I would expect price to, once we've done that lower high, expect price to continue downwards and aim for 108.7 and just continue downwards. So that's pretty much it for Bitcoin. I've talked about some higher time frame stuff and some lower time frame, so we can jump onto Ethereum and we can go a bit faster now. Bitcoin obviously is the magnum opus of crypto. It is the main dog, and now we can jump onto some lower time frame stuff. It's the same here, to be fair, actually. With that refinement, we can go on the 15-minute here and refine this a bit harder, and we can see. Did I just move something? Okay, I did. We can see it refines a bit close to this major move here as well, just to show that example. But anyway, going back to the 1 hour here and whatnot. So let's look at what we covered last stream before we move on quickly. So again, 15-minute, I'm not saying 15-minute is the area you want to look at for reversals, but, you know, in general, if you have that general hour trend, you know, it's harder to see the exact reversals and the exact areas where you find these reversals. But, you know, you can see it in a bit more detail on the 15-minute, for example, but we are going to use the 1 hour because we already have it drawn out anyway. So the major thing, as I was talking about, I think we had a 50-minute order block, I think, here, or something along those lines, which we stopped at. I used both these candles. I don't know why I have that both drawn, because that's the last candle in the move upwards. So that actually goes a bit better. Again, you can see we whipped past this high, coming up into here. Last candle before we started to actually have that major downtrend. Last candle, which obviously we used as resistance. But anyway, 1 hour. What I was mainly talking about was this area. I know it's very ugly because of all these horrible colors, but it was, again, this was the mitigation move, if you will. Obviously, we have that downtrend. This is slightly different from Bitcoin, where we don't have that major move upwards in the like in the downtrend anyway, where we've come past the low, and then like had a major move past the high, where we have two singular moves where we come past a major point like this. The idea is you kind of come back to that area and use it as support. In this case, it's slightly different, but it's a similar process in terms of where you just watch for the trend, where you have these down moves. And I think this is drawn the 50 minutes, so it's not exactly the same, but it's generally like this, where that individual move is the general area you want to focus on in this individual candle, where it's this singular high. It's the last move here, where it's this singular high, and it's that singular candle, the last candle before last high before the move upwards, and it's this candle we can see here, where you can see we come to the midpoint. But not only do we have that, I also drew out on the last stream, we had this gap here where we've kind of come into this major gap area and fulfilled it, and obviously we've had this singular candle, last candle before this massive move upwards, and we engulfed it here, and we can see we're kind of tickling on the top of this here as well with these low wicks. So the last stream was this candle. This was the last stream I was talking about Ethereum. Again, I missed Saturday. And what I was saying was I would expect Ethereum to potentially reverse at this point. And what I was saying was I know we had this major resistance areas and whatnot, and we should aim for the lows. However, I would expect Ethereum to see, major kind of reversals here, because obviously my point was we had this downtrend, again, normal downtrend. We were starting to be a bit more expansionary, and again, this is the same thing. It's like we saw major low, and again, we just about came below equilibrium. We have a 1 hour gap here, which we fulfilled on Ethereum, and then we start to move back upwards to find this area. But also the main important point for this as well is the fact that we've come to a higher time frame point of interest for a reversal. Again, we just came below equilibrium, so we've only just come into a discount to buy at, which you can see we're like what, like $8. Oh no, not even that. Like, yeah, about $8 within discount where we start to reverse, and then we've started to expand from this area. Again, these are very expansionary move downwards. We've started to slow down here, slight bit of expansion, and then we touched into this area, touched into a gap, fulfilled it, expansion, and then retracement, expansion. So again, this is a different move. This move, again, we do have to start an uptrend to get to this area, but the difference between just starting an expansion move upwards to get to these areas to find resistance is that we've come into an actual area to want to buy at on the higher time frame. If you go to the daily, I can show you where we have this. Again, we've had this major gap, which obviously we've refined down. The main gap here is this individual candle, which you can see we've fulfilled entirely. But once you have this drawn, you can go to the lower time frames and refine it a bit more to this 15-minute one, which we obviously fulfilled. And we just came below equilibrium. And I did talk about this during the Thursday stream. Again, Tuesday. Again, I had Tuesday, we had Wednesday be the stream, and then we had Thursday. So we missed Saturday. But in that Thursday stream, I was talking about the fact that we did come below equilibrium, and the aim could be to aim for the highs again. And again, this is like no crazy stuff to say. We have a major uptrend where the retracement from the high to the low in this intermediary move on the daily is 4,071 and below. So again, as soon as we come into that area, we're watching to see on the lower time frames if we can have a reversal from this area. Now, the difference here is, again, we come into this area, 1 hour gap fulfilled, and then we start to really expand upwards. And the important part for me is definitely this move with this support here, which we have used. And again, now I can start to move on a bit more to Ethereum past Thursday, coming to this move. So since basically this candle or this area is new TA. So new TA for this is we did actually start this move upwards. And this is very expansionary. This is very expansionary for Ethereum. It's not very, casual move upwards. I will not lie. This is very, this is probably the biggest expansion we had on the 1 hour for Ethereum, full stop, in this kind of whole area. This is like the biggest candle we've had in like ever. Maybe this candle could compare. This is the biggest candle we've had for Ethereum. So very big. Again, the outcome of what I was talking about on Thursday is right with this move, but it's a very crazy move. And again, I've made them purple so it's easier to see. This black one is the range on the daily, but these two purple candles was the second last high, or the second most high on Ethereum, which we used here and then came down. Again, once you're in that uptrend, you're aiming to take those highs and use internal range. If we go to the daily, I can show you what I mean by that. Is that once we're in this uptrend, we can see, we take these highs, find internal, take highs, find internal. Obviously, in this case, we ran up even higher to take out a major high. So again, it's all this process is the same thing. Once you start that uptrend, it's these highs. We took the high, came down. Same thing here. Take these highs, which I talked about here, came down. So same process, but looking at the topmost ones, it is this second most high and then this all-time high for Ethereum. So we took that high, came down, still in that uptrend. So what I've been saying for the past couple of streams for Ethereum is I will expect Ethereum to target its all-time high and produce a new max high for Ethereum. So lo and behold, all this TA is new from my last stream, and we have done that. So very, very happy with Ethereum so far. Very happy. Again, talks about the reversal occurred. Massive move upwards, again, very expansionary move upwards, and then you can see we just about whipped past that high, but again, we did have these expansionary moves to kind of use as support. But again, I wouldn't expect this to be a low, because again, if you look at the major trend, you want to expect retracements into a deeper point past 05. But again, in this intermediary move, we were still using that. But what we can notice as well, we kind of have this accumulation area, and then we wick past, we kind of have accumulation, and then we have this manipulation which come past this high, producing a new all-time high, and then distribution downwards. So we do have a bit of a power of 3 there as well. But anyway, we start to come down. Again, to be expected, we've just come past the all-time high for Ethereum, and technically twice, to be fair, you know, all-time high for this move, and then we printed past it, produced this move up here. We have equal highs here as well, and then we've started to dump. But again, like I just said, we have you know, the expectation where, you know, we should, again, obviously this one didn't come anywhere near it, so we push it up again to this area, and we can see we have this main area being around 4428 and deeper within this entire gap on the 15 minutes. But again, it still sits at the entire area for Ethereum. But the differences for this is, okay, yes, we didn't use this range high to low here. So technically, with this move, we have this low to this high as the next one. So again, new low to the new high, we use this. And then again, we've just come past all-time high. Higher time frame, we should start to look down again. So we've technically reversed past this. Again, we major low, move upwards, print past, start to have a downtrend here. So even though this is a gap and we have found support in it, I will start to draw some negative downtrend-based, you know, drawings, if you will. So on the 1 hour anyway, we have this, obviously, this gap here, which is starting to get a bit hard to look at because grey on grey. We can see we've fulfilled this. I will go to 15 minutes to see some like, what's the word for it, enhancements of it. And what we can see here, if we use this, we have, obviously we actually wicked past it, to be fair, on this major area, but we've come to this midpoint exactly. What I will say actually is we have the last candle before the down move. These are always going to be resistances as well, in terms of this candle, which we can draw along here and see we have kind of tickled on that as well here with this move. So we're kind of still coming up into this area, finding our resistance in this major area. And if we look at the general range, we have this. I can't draw it, it's too small. Hold on. It's this major range. Again, obviously, we kind of came to this area here, whatever. But the main area we want to target is this range here as well for Ethereum. And then from there, we have this last kind of leg here. Before, obviously, we're targeting these kind of, you know, these last highs for Ethereum. Actually, what I haven't done yet is look at the daily to see what we have on resistance. Well, we actually have fulfilled this gap. Obviously, we looked at it on the 15 minutes, or on the 1 hour anyway, where we have this fulfilled gap. So we did have that daily gap, which we fulfilled. But again, you know, uptrend, we did technically print past this high and have used support. So technically, actually, for Ethereum, you know what, now I'm saying about this, even though I'm looking for downtrend, on the daily, though, I might change my mind here, actually, because I haven't actually looked at the daily. I didn't actually look at this yet. We have this uptrend. Obviously, we find support. We had this, you know, mini gap. We did try to use it. But obviously, we have these major gaps down here for the major range being about here. And as we've already talked about, the difference between, you know, using these top-end gaps is, realistically, until you find that high, which, again, we have grounds to suggest this is the major high because we've just wicked past a major high behind us. That could be grounds to find a new major high, which we did use. And then from there, you're not really targeting these little mini moves. And yes, on the way upwards, you can use these. For example, let me try to find an example, actually. There's not really much of an example, but, you know, on an uptrend upwards, if you have these moves upwards, you can use these gaps on the way upwards to move upwards. But once you've found that high and you found reason to stop, then it's, you know, you're then coming down towards equilibrium and so on and so forth. So we came past, you know, this gap, for example, and didn't actually use it as major resistance, support, or anything, and continue upwards because we're not in the optimum area to buy. Once we come down into this area and fulfill this entire gap, on the 15 minute, we did use this and come upwards. So using that to our knowledge, actually, let me hide everything because it's getting a bit messy. Where is it all? I think it's glitched on Ethereum. I can't actually see any of it here. Let me refresh the page. There we go. Go back to the daily there. Okay. So what I want to kind of hide everything. Now I do have some stuff highlighted, but it's majorly, and it's getting very ugly now because it's major all just in this gap. We can keep these highs, to be fair, actually, but, you know, as I was talking about with the uptrend, you know, the higher lows you do and the less distanced highs you do, the easier it is to reverse that. However, we've still printed above this high technically, and we have still produced a higher low and, you know, done this move. So technically, you know, we can look to see if we find some sort of support. Now, the difference between this move and an awful move is we do have an expansion to look at. We have last move before the uptrend, and we did have this as well, where this is a order block. We have, again, down move, we have this area, whatever. We have last down close before the move upwards, where the high of that candle could be, you know, support. So again, like we kind of did on Bitcoin, where we go to the higher time frames and look at areas to focus on. Also on the weekly here, we can see this gap we've fulfilled. So looking at the higher time frames to find support and using them on the lower time frames, we have that daily support here. I'm just going to draw the line for now, and we can go to the 1 hour. We can see we came into this area and found support in it and start to move upwards. But going back to daily and 4 hour and whatnot, we have had this uptrend, and the difference between this, and actually on the 4 hour it looks a bit better, to be fair, even though we looked on the 1 hour here. On the daily, we can see we have, you know, move down, move upwards. This is actually the major move here for this move, and we can see below equilibrium is this gap here, which you can see we've fulfilled exactly. And also we can see kind of in this move we have this retracement and then move upwards, and we obviously have had this major gap here, which we've formed in this kind of this candle here, where we've formed it and used it and come upwards. We have this area, and we've also used it here as well. So pretty good there. So grounds to suggest we could come up one more time maybe for Ethereum. Now, what I was saying was if we came above high on this general, you know, area for Ethereum, it could be pretty concerning. That I would suggest us Ethereum coming a lot lower. Now, I think Ethereum could have one last run. The higher highs or the higher lows we do, the easier it is to reverse that. And we are definitely slowing down. Again, the high between here and here, and, you know, this is the high, and this is the high. The gap between this area is pretty massive. But then we look here, we have that high, we have that low again. And then we can see that the difference between this high and this high is like nothing. You know, versus this. You know, we have definitely slowed down in terms of producing new highs. And our low is here. So again, we did have this gap on the daily. We did have that order block, which we have wicked into. We fulfilled this gap. We could suggest on the lower time frames, Ethereum coming up one more time. But if this is our low, the low is now even higher. I wouldn't expect Ethereum to maybe come up even higher than this. And, you know, I would expect it to probably have reversals soon. But I don't think that'll happen just yet. I do think Ethereum can run up one more time. Now that I'm looking at it on the daily, we did technically have a gap. We did technically have that reversal. If you look at the daily anyway, we have this major area. It sits equilibrium again, 4512. And the major area is about 4330 coming into this support area. You know, this general area for Ethereum. So pretty good. There are technical grounds to suggest move upwards. We have this gap, we fulfilled it and came down. This is the last concerning area for Ethereum until it doesn't really get that bad. Again, yes, this is a high we probably would see a low at, or a high in this case anyway. This gap, again, if we could continue down from here in terms of we've had this move upwards, and if we to draw this anyway, we are in this gap area here. We can, you know, draw this across. We can see above equilibrium and whatnot, filling the rest of this gap sits in this optimum area above equilibrium. So technically, you know, on within this trend on the 1 hour and whatnot, this is area to suggest we could come down again, as we are seeing on the 1 hour expansion downward retracement, expansion retracement. So, you know, we could come a bit deeper, but on the, as I see it right now, on the higher time frame, Ethereum as a whole, we could see a bit higher for, you know, Ethereum. But again, you know, if we go to the daily, we can come even deeper towards, you know, 4254 before it gets, you know, concerning anyway. You know, we've come quite deep up into this gap. You know, we probably might not form anything here. We fulfilled this. You know, we could come deeper. Again, we have this proportion block. We have this major support on the daily where we can see this midpoint at 4,200. You know, you know, and these are also equal lows, so this is also could be something Ethereum might want to target in terms of these equal lows. So we could come as low as those lows in this major retracement. So we might not use this gap fully, and I still wouldn't think that would be a concerning area to come to for it being a, you know, for us to actually reverse and come downwards. We could use this as the last leg down before we move upwards again. But we do have, you know, pretty major expansion support, which will obviously be fulfilled, where we could come up one more time for Ethereum. But again, I do think it's very soon. I think Ethereum is very close before we see that major, you know, move down. You know, I do think we could start to have major move down for Ethereum. And again, we've talked about 2,700. Again, on the daily, we have this gap here. We do have this gap. We've already kind of come into. the major kind of gap, which we haven't even touched yet, is 2,780, which we've talked about plentiful, plenty of times on Ethereum on the higher time frame. So what I will do, I probably will move on to Solana. Again, I have not actually that much time, especially if I'm covering Crow as well. So let me jump to Solana. I'll be very quick on Solana. Just kind of give updates on Syrup and Sui, and then kind of move on. So Solana, I don't really remember exactly what I was talking about, but obviously we have gaps here. I can kind of infer. We did also have this being an order block, again, the last low before this move upwards with this high print. Again, we did come into this order block, forming this one, but again, the major point here was this gap individual. Obviously the major range is this area, which obviously we've kind of fulfilled. If we were to just draw the individual gap, we can see that here as well. We've fulfilled this and start to come up with major expansion from here. I think what I drew on the higher time frame, if I hide the daily here, was that we had a range back here. I believe a old was this a weekly maybe? What? I think it must have been, actually, it might have been the 4 hour. I think, yeah, I came across all the way back here just to see on the 4 hour. We had the high, we had another high, we've come past. We also had this last high before this move down, or major move down. Actually, it's this high, to be fair, but we find resistance in here and use it again. So this is also a major resistance. This area and this area are both, this kind of general range in about $210 is a order block to find resistance in, which if we shimmy along on the 4 hour, which looking at, today's date, we can see we came up into it, printed at it, came down again. We can see we also, not only have we whipped past this high, which is obviously the major kind of goal for Solana in terms of this, kind of moving up and down and whatnot, coming past this high. Obviously, we've already technically printed past the candle bodies. We found resistance. Again, the midpoint of this range is about 212. Our high was 213.5. So kind of sitting about $1 within that high. We did wick at this major high anyway. We actually formed equal highs, so it actually kind of makes sense. We formed a high at that midpoint, but we also formed equal highs here, so we did wick that one last time before we start to reverse. But again, as soon as we come up into 207 and above, and we whip past this high, we have multiple reasons to suggest that at around $210 we should see reversal for Solana, which we obviously have done. We have this massive expansion downwards. We have this major gap. Again, we have this range here, which obviously we've used. We had this order block. We used this $176, which we've talked about. Major high here, and now we've come down into optimum area at this gap, and obviously we can come upwards. Yes, we do have an order block here, which we could potentially use. Because the 1 hour, actually, I want to see if we can use this a bit better. We can see actually we come to the midpoint of this really nicely. This expansion we haven't really used. We're coming upwards, which again makes sense. Even though we have this massive gap on the higher time frame, we shouldn't be using this on the higher time frame, because again, we have this gap. Why have we didn't use this gap? Why haven't we used certain gaps here? Obviously, we have one gap here, to be fair, and we have this order block down here. But why don't we use certain gaps versus others? I think it really comes down to the trend we're doing and the higher time frame. Again, in this case, on the high time frame, we're moving upwards, so we have this major gap here. We fulfill it at midpoint in this case, actually, and then obviously we come upwards. The major range of this, again, also the midpoint, continuing upwards to take out the highs until we come to a reason to stop, which again is about $212 in this area. We form kind of triple equal highs here, wick past it, downtrend, print past this low. I bet on the 15-minute we can see it a bit better. Yeah, we can see equal high, triple highs and this high. We kind of have like 4 equal highs here. We just about wick past it, coming into this major area, and then massive expansion downwards. So yeah, common ground to find a reversal there. And on the 4 hour, yes, we do have these gaps, but apart from maybe this major area on the 1 hour anyway, in this major area, there's not really major gaps. And again, what makes sense anyway is we want to come back upwards into this area. Now I know this is resistance, but if we remember what we had on the daily with this major trend, we are above equilibrium, but we were mainly talking about this gap back here for Ethereum to look at to have the major resistance and continuing downwards. So last up close before the start of the downtrend, obviously in this case would be this candle. Obviously we kind of formed it. We actually start to print down again and use the midpoint and whatnot. So we do have this major area which also sits at this gap at around 217. So again, the top of this gap, which also we used, we have this gap which we kind of still have outstanding with these triple highs here as well. So and also we took this high at 208, which was the other thing we were focusing on a long time ago for Solana. So I would suggest about 220, which if we go back to the daily, has been drawn out for a long time now in terms of this range anyway. About $220 being a good target for Solana. Obviously, major resistance here, which we kind of have used on the way downwards. Again, formed it. You know, we had it here, used it here. We have this low, we have this gap, we used it here. Last candle, used that here. Another gap. And kind of just form this resistance on the way downwards. So I would suggest that gap probably being somewhere to target for Solana. And obviously on the way up, using these different resistances on the way up. Same thing we've looked at on Bitcoin, same thing on Ethereum, where you look back at your old price action to find different points to find resistance at. So for example, you know, we have the major low, we come past this high, we come down, we fill this gap, we come upwards, we have obviously this order block, we have equal highs, we take these highs, we have this gap here, we use it, but we don't fulfill it fully because, again, our major low to the major high is kind of midpoint around here, this major range. We come below equilibrium here to find support in this range. Obviously, I'm not going to go too in detail because I can't be bothered. And then obviously we come up again, find high, major low to major high, equilibrium probably sitting around here, I would say, you know, about here and here, and obviously come below it and then come upwards again to do the same thing. So again, using all these on the way down. Again, we have this high range up here, order block, it was this original high first which we used, and then we have this major high which obviously we wicked past here, and then we have this major order block on the 4 hour which we have now used as resistance. But again, still on that way up, still using higher lows, higher highs until we find that major reason to stop, if we are in this major kind of up down scenario for Solana anyway. Obviously we have this move, down move. You know, if you look on the head and shoulder idea where we have these expansions, well, it's not really exactly head and shoulders, but in terms of you have that move upwards, take that high, and then you have that expansion downwards. Probably better to look at it on the weekly, where we have this normal move upwards. You know, wick past it. You know, we actually failed to print past this. Obviously, major higher time frame high here. Obviously, wick past it again. Had a bit of a gap here, which we obviously used here. Came upwards, took that, nothing else. Down we come, printed past this low as well. So again, obviously we formed the order blocks on the way upwards as well. But again, major thing here on the weekly as well. Again, $220, we have that weekly gap as well to look at. So another thing there coming from that high as we've printed this, you know, uptrend, massive expansion downwards, retracing to that lower high, potentially aiming to come down again for Solana. As we expect Bitcoin to come to 90k, as we expect Ethereum to come to 2800, 2700, same case for Solana, where we find that high, whether that be in this gap, $220 range for that retracement above equilibrium, and then start to come back down again, taking out basically aiming for the lows. Once we start to reverse, it's using internal range, aka these gaps, and then taking out these lows. So it's going to be taking out 155, taking out 126, and taking out, you know, 94 in theory. And that's pretty much it for Solana. Anyway, I do need to move on. I've got about 4 minutes left. Syrup, I haven't really done too much new TA because again, it's mainly been I think I was on this, but again, it's a bit choppy price action. But again, you know, when was the last stream actually? So 4 hour, Saturday, Thursday. So here was the last area. Major trend. What I would say about this though was that this, and the reason why I moved onto Binance for the exchange for this, because if we go to some lower time frames, we can see we have really choppy price action, which actually fails to fully kind of actually truly print what the price is actually doing. So I do need to move back onto Ethereum or move back onto Binance for Syrup. I haven't done that yet. But anyway, we had this major high, really impressive move upwards for Syrup, but didn't really matter. We have come down. We haven't fully printed down here, but again, massive expansion. I really wouldn't expect us to not use this as resistance. And again, we are still aiming for that 38.47. That has been the main area we've been slowly getting towards. Even though we had this massive run up, didn't really matter to me. Again, still waiting for that move downwards for this whole move for Syrup. I actually will go to Binance, Syrup on Binance quickly just to... Because again, the reason I used it... Oh yeah, I had this drawn. I forgot about this. Yeah, this was the major thing. Obviously, high to low to high. Again, same thing here, high to low. We haven't found our major low yet, but following it down anyway until we find that low. Again, in this case, you can see... Why is this so far away? You can see we high to low. We actually form a low down here. We have a bit of a gap here anyway. We actually form our low and start to print above these highs. That is our official low. So again, aiming to find where the gap is going to be. We have our major range in here, but we also have the gap here as well with this high, which we took. But if we go to some lower time frames, we can enhance the gap a bit better and actually find the official gap. So we have a gap here, for example. We have this gap, which we actually used in this case and used it away. So we have this kind of tiny gap here as well for syrup, which we actually pretty much looks like the gap we used. I will go to the 15-minute actually just to see how we used it. Also, we have the last move upwards before this move downwards of resistance. But if I go to the 15-minute just to see where that gap is exactly going to reside, we can use it there and there as well. So we go on to use that to the 4-hour. I keep on moving everything. You can see on the 15-minute that was our gap, which we fulfilled exactly, pretty much, you know, nilths of a penny away. So use that as our high, and then again, you know, even though that's this was our move to aim for this low, we have done that low, and then we've come upwards to do a lower high anyway, and still aiming down to target. We've targeted this low, massive expansion downwards. I would expect us to still want to target this on this major trend we've had since on the daily anyway, where we're in this move downwards, you know, low to the high. We still want to print past 39 cents, 38.5 cents. I do expect the price to still continue to aim towards these areas below us, which we've continued to do for the entire time on syrup. So again, really close though, really pretty much nearly spot on, like 0.002 of a cent. But again, massive expansions on the way up, on the way down, and so on and so forth. We can see this is our major area, really looking at just an individual trend anyway. We have this to here, and obviously well, actually it probably goes a bit higher because we haven't used I'm gonna hide this for now. We haven't actually used any of these areas as a retracement area. So since this move, we have this move downwards. We can see we draw that low to the high. We didn't actually use it here as well, so actually I'm going to draw the whole thing. And we can see retracement also sits a bit higher, equilibrium above here. So again, we could come up a bit higher for syrup, but again, I still think most of these aims would be, again, once we've already come past this low, is still aiming towards 38.47 for syrup. So we'll see how it goes. We're still continuing to do this, and obviously, you know, I will expect it to come to that area. Sui, let's quickly update that. I will have a quick look at Crow. I might go over by, you know, a few minutes, as I always do. I think I was on Binance. Yeah, I was. Okay, cool. It's really messy, actually. I might need to clean up this chart. What was I looking at? So Thursday was here. We had these gaps. I think I was talking about us coming below. Again, higher time frame came below equilibrium, and this is the thing. This is why I drew this major range. You can see this high to this low. I've drawn this actually after the fact, but I think I just moved it from this low. But the same thing here. Looking back at these main areas, we have this major move downwards. We've come past this higher time frame equilibrium here. We've also come past this low. And again, remember what I've been saying, coming past these downtrends or coming into a downtrend, you aim for these previous areas. Again, same thing here. Came past this low, these lows, this major low anyway, formed this low, came back up into this retracement, and then same thing here. In this downtrend, aiming for lows down here. This is the major low anyway. Found this major low, formed the low here, trying to look at retracement. We don't really have much of an expansion here. We don't have an expansion here. So looking at the major retracement anyway, it is sitting at expansions back here and this whole range. On the daily anyway, we had a major, oh no, where is it? We had a gap. Oh yeah, the major gap range is this whole area, which we have fulfilled. We also have this is the last, this being the last high before this move down, coming past these highs, wicking past here. You can see these highs got wicked past, and then we had a massive dump. So this is also an order block. This candle, we can see we hit it here and used it, and then we've also used this area pretty much to the midpoint here as well at $3.84 for Sui, and now we've come back down, found our resistance in this wider range. Again, high to the low, found our resistance for a lower high, and now we should be doing a lower low. So again, we are coming down, expansion downwards anyway. I'm going to delete most of this because it's really in my way and I don't like it. I'm going to delete all this actually because it's getting a bit much. Is this just a low? Yeah, okay. So again, same thing here. We have that high to the low. Again, just about coming past some of these areas, coming downwards. We have retracement sitting about this area. Again, just about above equilibrium is this gap. I'm going to go to the 1 hour just to see what we have. And we can see as well, we have these areas. We have this wick past this intermediary high. We have an order block here as well, which we formed from this order block. And that's also something which happens very often. They're called propulsion blocks, where you form new order blocks from order blocks. So we have a resistance here at $3.70. We form another one here. We come up into it and then engulf it. So we have another one with this last candle here at $3.60. So what I will do actually is just draw a rectangle here, coming from this order block. We can see we have resistance sitting about $3.68. So I could expect us to ramp up a bit more. Again, we do have gaps sitting above equilibrium at $3.57, but optimum area as well. All these gaps and whatnot, we could expect to come up a bit higher than some of these areas. And if we go to the daily, actually on the daily, we can see that major gap is actually here in this range, where if we refine it, it actually sits here. So we could maybe not actually hit as high as there. We could also maybe aim for $3.58, but regardless, I do think Sui is continuing back upwards to do a lower high and then again continuing downwards. And what I've been saying the entire time for Sui, obviously targeting these lows, I think $3.26 is going to be something like a major low, because this isn't just like a 4-hour low or whatever. This is a daily low. And again, since we're in this downtrend as well, we are targeting old lows. $3.24 is going to be a major low. We also have these previous gaps, especially this gap at $3. I think I have talked about $2.90 as well. We have this gap here, so I would expect that to be something to target to. But especially on the lower time frames, if we are coming past $3.26, I will expect that to be a low. Especially now we're doing equal lows. If we can see from this low, we have formed here. We can see we've pretty much done relatively equal lows with these two lows. If we have a move down, which gets past all, like, basically this range, if we get past this range here and coming towards $3.25, that is probably going to be a pretty major low in this move. I would expect a decent response from there and continue back upwards. But again, I do still think we are continuing downwards to that major area about $2.90, $3. And obviously from there, I would expect, because this is only just a retracement on the weekly, I would expect price, as we can see with this, all we're doing is a new low, which again, it sits at about $3.10. So maybe $3.10 could be the low in terms of the weekly. But we also have that $3.15 order block here, which you can see. So we could expect $3.10, $3.15 to be our major low on the weekly, which only concerns the weekly right now. And then from there, we should expect to see a low. And then obviously, if you are holding Sui, good news, I would expect it to come back upwards again, as we are in this kind of general uptrend, to aim towards its high at $4.44. We have these equal highs here as well. It's going to be very, very sensitive to target as well. We also have this last high before the move downwards, which obviously takes out these equal highs as well, also producing new equal highs. Again, a big target I would target as well for Sui are those equal highs. We have this as well. We can see, once we get up into this order block, we have these areas. We come up, find resistance. Again, new high from this area. This is also going to be an area to, as we're coming upwards, we have found resistance in this area as well. So again, another thing to focus on. But I suppose the thing is as well with this is, we are in an uptrend. We didn't quite do a low past this. So even though this is a massive move downwards, and we would expect, this to be a downtrend, we have done that high. We have done that low in this gap here. We have done that low in this gap here, and we have printed a new high. So even though this is concerning, obviously looks like we should be in a downtrend, we have actually started this uptrend as well for this move. And we don't really have much expansionary in the way, apart from, a major gap here. But I think the target for those equal highs at $5.35 could be pretty important for Sui as well long term. So again, I think for Sui, if you're holding it right now, I wouldn't say there's something really concerningly great in terms of where the price can go to short term. I think Sui is more of a longer term thing to target for a sell anyway, if you are holding it, and probably is a good buy somewhere soon, especially at $3.10, $3.15 could be a good area to target to buy at before it moves up again. If you want to buy at $3.10 and sell at $4.44, if it was to do that, not financial advice, could be a good area to target as well if we draw that, maybe a 44% move upwards. So could be pretty good to think about. But anyway, Crow, last thing I'll look at really quick, just a bit of an update here for this. So what do we have here? So I think, I was drawing, the main TA was on the monthly. That's how bad the TA was, because I couldn't really be bothered to majorly look at it. I wanted to look at the high to the low and look at standard deviation. So basically in these ranges is where you should find the new highs, is kind of the general idea. So in this case, we had this old high, we wicked past and came down. That was our high here. Next range is this area. The only real thing here was the start of this lower time frame gap we have here. You can see we wicked into it here, this third standard deviation away, and obviously we came back down. So the next one should be the range in between we move back upwards. This was the one we used. The next one should be 3 to 4 here, which we can see the top of that range anyway is 28.47, but again the midpoint sitting at about 26, and you can see the entirety of this range I think might be on the daily. It might be a daily gap or a weekly gap even. I can't remember which one I drew it on. It might be the weekly. It's not the weekly actually. Although the weekly, to be fair, if we're looking at the individual gaps, actually pretty nice there, sitting about 27, 28 as well. But why did I draw? There was a reason for me to draw the gap there. I'm trying to find it though. Oh no, I think this was just me drawing a range for the standard deviation actually, to be fair. Actually, well, I can use this as our main area, and we can see we have this gap, which obviously 27.5 cent. We have 28.5 as well. So kind of, I would expect price to come up into that. Again, we have this area, this whole range. Now, the things about these ranges, which I have talked about previously, they can come as low as D1. Again, the general areas these normally come to are optimum area, but they can come as low as the lows and wick past them to take out this, especially it seems that we have these triple lows, quadruple lows even sitting about here. We have these lows here, really good to target for as well. Not only do we have this gap, which obviously we, on the candle bodies anyway, we fulfilled this whole range. We draw this across anyway, pretty roughly anyway. We have this entire gap, which we obviously fulfilled and then used and come upwards. So again, retracement, I would expect price to come upwards anyway, and this is something we've been talking about again, weekly, monthly stuff. I drew this, I don't know how long ago I drew this, but again, this whole thing has been happening since 2024. I was expecting this retracement into these gaps and these lows. We took them obviously quite deep, because again, the higher time frame you go, weekly, monthly, it's not going to be it's hard to be pinpoint on every single time frame, every single time. It's not impossible, but you know, it's one of those things. Obviously in this case, we potentially had order block as well. You can see we kind of came onto some of these highs here as well, but we used this. We've now started to come upwards, had a run upwards. So again, uptrend, high, low, took the high, produced a new low. Again, we didn't print past this low, nothing concerning, nothing super concerning there. So move upwards, move down, move upwards, move down again, obviously very, very major. And then we're starting to move upwards, coming back. There wasn't really much of expansion concerning on the weekly or the monthly. So nothing really of resistance, again, coming upwards. Again, the main thing I've been looking at and been targeting on Crow the entire time has been 23.55. And this is, I've had this drawn. I don't really think, apart from the standard deviations and obviously this change in this gap, I have not changed the Crow chart once from what I've drawn. So this is stuff I've drawn a long time ago for Crow. So again, it's us really just coming upwards and running upwards towards this high. Again, the stopping point, again, we could use this 23.6 as the main high. Now again, we did have this old gap, which we have used for this major area before we retraced. So the next one up is this 27 area. So for me, it isn't really what we're doing, it's more what price we're going to stop at. So I think we're going to stop at a price at least past 23.55. I think this comes up towards 26, 27 and a half, at least if we go to the monthly. Again, obviously, this is a wide range. The standard deviation theory, anyway, which we have used as Bitcoin. And again, standard deviations is something I've used on Bitcoin to predict the 123k high we had the first time. And it also was the next high we used for the 124k. But in this case, obviously, the highs are in these ranges, looking at where you could stop at. So again, in this case, it was... I believe that weekly gap, the midpoint we had, was at about 23.55. And again, it's not perfect. It's very hard to predict a very perfect high for Crow. You know, it's like charts are, you're never going to get a pinpoint. You can get pinpoint, and you know, I'll gloat all I want about getting a pinpoint price, but it's not ever going to be always perfect pinpoint every single time. But anyway, so the general rule of thumb is going to be that 4 to 3 range, 23.7 to 28.4. And again, we saw with that weekly gap. The midpoint's about 27.5. So we could target the latter end of that at 26.7 or 28.4, which I do have marked out with that high at 4 exactly. So if we are targeting similar how we did last time, where we came to the top end of the range, we could do the same thing at 28.4, which also sits at, if we look at the quadrants of the gap, we will see the actual quadrant of this also sits at 28.23. So 28.23, 28.46. That will probably be my target towards Crow for a major high. But again, it could come as low as 26.5. It's hard, not financial advice. I would want to watch this as we come upwards to see if we have a reversal in some of these areas. But I do expect Crow to continue upwards in this move and aim for these highs, as we've expected for the entire time for Crow. You know, it just takes some time to happen. And this is the difference between the Crow chart, which we had all that time ago, and everything else, is I refuse to look at Crow on the daily in the 4 hour, because of the 4 hour, the TA just kind of sucked. It wasn't really great. I think we were back here actually, some of these lows. It was just like this sucked. I think I just mainly looked at the higher time frame because I didn't enjoy looking at the price action on the lower time frame. So Crow for me was a lot better to look at on the weekly and the monthly, which obviously we have looked at here with obviously these major gaps and whatnot. And I do expect it to continue upwards, and that's obviously a longer time frame thing to watch for and a longer time frame thing to play out. But again, it's rewarding when you watch it play out on the monthly, because again, it's a lot bigger price movements. Again, coming from that low, but past this wick and past this order block, which we have here, coming all the way upwards towards that potential high, it's 300% up, something like that. And once you see that reversal on here, again, you can go to the on monthly anyway. You can go to the daily, for example. We've wicked past it here. We can see we started to print upwards, expansions upwards, and using these supports. Once you see this retracements, obviously probably go to the weekly actually here as well. We have that wick, we have that move upwards. Obviously there are resistance points in these areas, which you can see we kind of come into. But once you have that, once you produce that high, once you print past here, that's when you kind of want to focus on using it as the major area. Once you print past this on the weekly, obviously on the daily it's a bit different. You can see we have a major move downwards. We have this high, we have some lows here. But once we kind of print past this here, 25th of March, that's really when you're like, okay, cool, we probably should be watching for us to come upwards now. So, coming from that point, let's say, at about that high towards this, let's say the latter end of this, again, 156% as well. So, really major movements on the higher time frames for Crow, and I will expect this to continue to play out over the, the weeks and whatnot coming upwards. But again, I don't think it'll be super long, because again, as the market is moving, a lot of things, a lot of altcoins are moving upwards, but the general gist, especially on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and so on and so forth, should be down. So I wouldn't expect this to take months to play out. I would expect this to come up quite heavily, but there will probably be a major resistance or major retracement in this range, especially if we look at the most recent low to where could be the predicted high of that range. If we look at the below the equilibrium, the support sits around this area as well. So again, potential for this point. You can see we've already used its support at 13.74 cent in this range. You can see we had this order block here, which we formed. We had the gap. Obviously, we've used this support here and then continued upwards. So this area could be used again as support, maybe on the latter end of it down here at 13 cent. So again, I would expect decent retracements for Crow on the higher time frame. But from there, as we are continuing this uptrend on this major area, finding that stopping point probably a bit higher, 36 cents. You know what I mean? I do expect it to come up a lot higher. And if we go to the monthly, actually, I do want to see one more thing. We haven't really had a true major print past that low. And even if we have printed past these highs. So even though we've had this major retracement, I do expect price could come up even higher towards these highs again, towards maybe $1 for Crow. Again, this is long play. This will take a long time to happen, but I would expect Crow to have that general idea to come back upwards again as we've kind of come upwards and maybe target some of these highs again, and obviously just come upwards. Malik has said, can I look at Manta? I'm like 15 minutes over, and I'm super late over the charts, and everyone is left and everyone's really bored on YouTube anyway. So what I will do, I will cover that next stream. I will write it down for myself now. Okay, I've written it down. So I will look at that next stream. So if you join next stream, which will be, it is what? Tuesday today, right? Yeah. I'll be back on Thursday. We do have a quiz tomorrow, actually, so you obviously can come along. But Thursday, I'll be back on the charts. So if you want to come along on Thursday, I will look at Manta. I'll try to do it like first thing. I'll look at Bitcoin, look at Manta quickly, and then go on to Ethereum and Solana. So if you do want to join back on Thursday, I will cover that. But I am severely late and over my 1 hour mark. But again, I did have a lot more to cover today, so, it's warranted. So thank you, all of you, for being here, joining me on this stream. Again, I'm very happy with how the charts are moving. It's, I'm not going to say it's another day in the office. I'm not going to say anything like that, because again, I know that's everyone says that. Well, not everyone, but people say that. And no, I'm just going to be happy with what we have. Okay, I'm very happy. I think I understand how we're moving next. Let's see how it goes. I'll be back on Thursday for the charts. And I'll be back tomorrow for the Mew quiz. So obviously, if you guys are here, you guys probably know about the quizzes. If you've seen it before, we do quizzes. You can join on YouTube. You literally just type the answer in the chat and you can win crypto for taking part in our quiz. So it'll be about Mew. So maybe do some research about Mew and join on Wednesday. Join tomorrow, obviously. And obviously, we'll be playing it in the afternoon. Pretty much same time right now. I think is it like 8 till, I think it's like 7 till 8. 8 till 9. I can't remember exactly what time. But maybe just be here for about 7 UTC plus 2. And you could potentially win. So, and it's a lot of fun. It's the most fun I've ever had on stream. So do come along. Do play the quiz. Other than that, thank you all. Appreciate you all. Everyone has gone on YouTube, I've noticed. I've gone over so far. Thank you who are still here for sticking by and whatnot. Again, Tito, I do apologize for missing your message, but I do think we could have one more run up. So, you know what I mean? At this time, ETH is strong. Maybe we'll go again this week, higher high. Yeah, I do think so. I'm sorry, I have actually completely not read the chat. I see ETH trying to go more high. Is it real or fake pump ongoing? Yeah, I mean, I did cover it during Ethereum. As you've also rightly said, I could maybe expect Ethereum to go for another high. I do think we could be running out of steam for Ethereum, but there's potential for it to go up. I will watch it again. I'll recover it on Thursday. I don't expect anything major to happen until Thursday, because unless some manipulation happens, unless some massive sell-off and some this XYZ happens, I don't really expect there to be major, you know, craziness happening until Thursday. So I will recover it Thursday, maybe try to go a bit more in detail to where it could go. But obviously today I didn't want to look at Crow and some other things, but I will try look at it on Thursday and see again. But I do expect Ethereum to go up again. Bitcoin's obviously coming down. Boom, 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 coming down. Solana, again, I also do think it could come upwards. But the general market flow, as we've looked at on stream before, and Mike's probably looked at, is it goes into Bitcoin, it does its thing, and then it leaves Bitcoin and goes into everything else, and they do their thing, and then everything leaves. So it's not surprising that Bitcoin is coming down relative to everything else. Obviously, SERP is also coming downwards. We've been talking about that, though. But it's no surprise that Bitcoin's coming down versus everything else relative to the market flow. So, again, makes sense. We'll see how it goes. Thank you, all of you. See you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. Have a great, you know, if it's, I don't know, in the morning, have a great rest of your day. If it's the evening, have a great sleep. Whatever. I'll see you Thursday. I'll see you Wednesday. Goodbye.